going to take a call from North Carolina as he bids to save his US PGA Tour card this week at the Wyndham Championship. Cyril Farrell, meanwhile, he was manager at Galway when they bridged a 57-year gap. That was to win the 1980 All-Ireland against Limerick. So suitably enough, we're going to get Cyril's memories in the show this evening. Harry Arter has joined Cardiff City. The Irish international is with us after 9 o'clock. As is Adam Pope of the BBC, who's going to tell us about the impact Marcelo Bielsa is having at Leeds United. They're in action this evening. Text number 53106. We're on Twitter at Off The Ball. Dan McDonnell in studio. Hello.
Hi, Joe.
And Will O'Callaghan as well.
Evening, Joe.
How are you?
Good.
So, well, we'll get on to, Shane Lowry in the show is good. Cyril Farrell, always a welcome addition to the show. Anytime we swoop in and take an RTE panellist for the night, I think it's good. And then Harry Arter will join us. Adam Pope of BBC over in Yorkshire is going to talk to us about Marcelo Bielsa, who is a kind of legendary figure in his own time, as we know, has had a fairly ridiculous career, ridiculous CV, managed Argentina and Chile, Athletic Bilbao, Marseille, Lazio he walked out on after like a game.
He's had a number of brief relationships with clubs.
Yeah, Marseille as well. I think he left 1 or 2 games into the start of his second season there, and then Lille, he never really got started either. And he's at Leeds and things have started very well. They beat Stoke 3-1, they beat Frank Lampard's Derby 4-1. The football is Bielsa-esque, it's brilliant. And we're going to check in on how he's doing. Funny that I mention this because after we said we were going to do this piece in the meeting, Felipe Contepomi, who's obviously at Leinster now, has just been talking about the genius of Marcelo Bielsa. He says his way of coaching and teaching is unbelievable. People might say Bielsa is crazy, but he's unbelievable in the way he thinks, his ethic, the way he wants to achieve. I think he's one of the guys in Argentina, they might call him loco, the crazy man, but I think being crazy or a genius, the difference is we don't understand the crazy people. Every genius has been treated as a crazy man. And so he's a massive fan of Marcelo Bielsa, who, he started really well at Leeds, and there've been a few really good pieces about Bielsa and the impression he's made at Leeds early on. The work ethic is off the charts, the attention to detail. There was a David Heitner piece in The Guardian that's really good. People should check it out still.
Brilliant, yeah. And apparently he turned up at his job interview. If there is, he probably did have to do some kind of job interview, even though I think, he was a high profile recruitment and they've paid proper money for him. So I assume he was top of their list. But
they flew to him, by the way.
Yeah. So it's a sort of an interview of sorts. He wasn't sort of waiting in the waiting room with other managers,
no.
Who's in next. Yeah, but he was able to sort of recount detail of every match in the previous season and like formations and details. And you would naturally assume that someone who's sort of been an elite level operator for his career wouldn't have the knowledge of championship football.
Yeah.
But it appeared that he did have his homework done, which is in keeping, as you mentioned, with his attention to detail, which means that the players are now doing double sessions and long days.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to tone down, because the championship is a slog. It's a 46-game slog. So burnout is one question that's already been raised potentially, but we are seeing the results in the opening games. And he is like a godfather figure to a lot of young coaches, such as Pochettino, who actually wrote him a reference that helped them to get the job, because of his permit issues. He needed to go through an interview process where I think he went in front of Kenny Jackett, the manager at Portsmouth, and Stuart Ripley, ex-Blackburn winger, to show that he deserved to work in England.
He brought Pochettino through as a player, met him as a 14-year-old and brought him through. Pochettino loves him, Pep Guardiola famously loves him, Diego Simeone. Every time we talk to Tim Vickery about whatever latest manager is making waves in South American football, he's a Bielsa disciple. It's kind of insane. This guy's the Johan Cruyff of
the leader.
South America, yeah. That line about the attention to detail really struck me as well in the interview. It was Victor Orta, the Leeds director of football, and it was Angus Kinnear, the managing director, who flew over to him. And so it's David Heitner writes, Bielsa delved into his copious notes. This is when they asked him, do you know anything about English football? Because you've never really worked over here at all. So this is just mad. Bielsa delved into his copious notes and began his response by detailing the respective teams' information from last season's Burton versus Bolton game. Then he went through every formation Burton and Bolton had used. I don't know why Burton and Bolton came up. Throughout the season. And after that he did likewise for every other club in the division. Bielsa could say, for example, how many times a team had played a 4-3-3, 4-4-2 or 3-5-2. He had even calculated the probability of one formation to beat another. He can't be doing that on his own. He has to have a factory.
I assume there's a website he used along the way. It's very hard to get access to all that material. I mean, I don't think he watched every single game with a notepad, taking down the formations.
It says his copious notes.
He could have just gone to the live score archive, you know, but still, he got there.
Yeah.
And I think it is true. You would wonder, because, you know, the Championship is idiosyncratic in some ways, you know, and there are these managers who are experts at getting teams promoted, like Steve Bruce and people like that, and you think it's a division where you need to know the terrain a small bit. So that is the risk element in going for like a glamour candidate, as he would be. So he was clearly determined to prove that he wasn't someone who was aloof, you know, was going to stride in and have no knowledge of what went before.
He certainly started very well. The David Heitner piece again, which you sent in my direction and is really good. I mean, it starts with Marcelo Bielsa had a question. It's a good opening line to an article. Got to
bring you into that moment.
Yeah. Off of the cap to David Heitner. He says the new Leeds manager wanted to find out how hard the average supporter had to work to pay for a ticket to watch the team. How many hours did he or she have to put in? It was unclear what kind of calculations went into the answer, but one was provided. It would be about 3 hours. So the Argentinian called his players together and told them that for the next 3 hours they would be picking up litter from around the club's Thorpe Arch training ground. He wanted them to learn a lesson to appreciate how the fans laboured to fulfil their passion. 3 hours picking up litter.
I'll bring him down to earth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things though where you need the results to be going well. Because pretty soon the players will turn that situation on the head. I mean, he had us picking up litter for 3 hours. He's had us in for 8 hours every bloody day.
Yeah.
You know, that there are these people, as you mentioned, the genius people who are decried as crazy. Like, there's a lot of them in management, and sometimes there's a shelf life for their brand. It works for a while, but it's no surprise really either that he's had a lot of short-term stays at clubs, because sometimes that intense nature can bring you so far.
Well, he said at Lazio that he knew it was not right. He just looked around and he was like, this isn't going to work. Whereas it seems he turned up at Leeds and literally started checking countertops for dust. And at one point he saw, Dave Heitner has it in the piece, a shoe mark kind of half a foot up on the wall. He said, why is there a shoe mark there? And someone said, well, I presume someone was standing against the wall with the sole of their foot, one sole of the foot resting against the wall. And he said, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable.
I mean, that is a small bit crazy. You know,
but he's not going to have it, you know.
It's like that guy in Father Ted going around saying something's wrong with the wall here and just banging away at it with the hammer till they find the fault.
Yeah.
There's some great detail in the pieces about him. And clearly, like, this has been briefed as well, and the people at the club are clearly very keen to get this message out, because it's got people talking about Leeds in a positive manner again, compared to most of the last sort of decade and a half.
Crucially, though, they really have been very good.
That's the main thing. But they've beaten teams that are sort of promotion contenders. They haven't been winning away at Burton and Bolton.
Yeah.
They've been beating sides like Stoke who've come down and brought in a manager and invested like heavily in players in a manner that Leeds haven't yet, and then Derby. So. Who were in the playoff shake-up last year. So it is certainly an impact manager in terms of what you would have desired. And I know they started last season well, but still, it's taking what they've done so far.
Keith Andrews I was doing the Keith Andrews Football Show, Facebook Live every Thursday, and he had watched the Stoke game. He was there at the ground and he was raving about them. He said the football was unbelievable. The intricacy of the passing, he was talking about the rotation when they have the ball, different positions, the pressing. He said it should have been 5-6, 7-8-0, let alone 3-1. He thought it was brilliant. And he noticed that the whole time Bielsa's staff were on the sideline pointing, gesticulating, pulling people this way, that way. And the whole time Bielsa sits on this like blue bucket.
The blue bucket,
blue bucket, and doesn't move. The word is the Leeds merchandise shop are going to be stocking the blue bucket sometime soon.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time before some youth coach who takes himself far too seriously will be sat on the sideline with a blue bucket. There'll probably be one somewhere this weekend in Ireland, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Bring your bucket out of the shed. This could be the difference maker for you, you know?
The other great aspect of Bielsa is how much disdain he has for the media. It's going to become apparent early on. So Sky Sports, Keith was saying that trying to get him to do the pre-match interview was painstaking. Didn't want to do it. I'm not doing it. Like, and then, well, you're contractually obliged. Well, I don't care. This kind of situation. But in fairness to him, when he came out with his translator, he gave it 110%, I would say, Dan. He gave it socks. Have a listen.
Marcelo, what are you expecting from your first game in English football?
Estoy ilusionado.
This is Marcelo talking back to his translator.
Deseoso de que esto comience.
This is now the translator talking back to Marcelo instead of...
I am very happy that this begin.
You'll have learned a lot about your squad over pre-season, but will you really find out about them today in a game against the title favourites?
Translator whispering into Marcelo's ear.
Yes. Sí, lo que dice
Marcelo back to translator.
Yes, you are right. Yes, you're right.
Oh dear.
And he clearly understood the second question as well, because he said yes. Oh no, wait.
Immediately.
Oh wait. But of course, Pochettino didn't speak English in his interviews for his first season at Southampton.
But at least Pochettino's translator would talk directly into the microphone to the person that was interviewing them, as opposed to they've added an extra layer on here where he gives the English back to Bielsa, who then repeats the English.
Yeah, it's a slightly convoluted process, but yeah, I think maybe he might. I don't know. Away from the TV, I think he might be a bit more giving of his time media-wise. But the old Sky pre and post-match stuff may not ever be like his soundbite dream.
But ironically, it's now unmissable
in a strange way.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So
I mean, he still probably speaks like 4 more languages than most of us ever will.
I'm sure he speaks better English than us as well.
Yeah.
So we'll talk to Adam Pope from the BBC, who's over there. He's been covering Leeds for the last decade and a half or so, and it seems Leeds fans are really pretty excited right now and hoping Bielsa can continue this. They're in action this evening, although there's kind of wholesale changes, given it's... What's the name of the cup? Carabao. Carabao
There's
Cup.
around 1 million games tonight, I think.
Are there?
So, yeah.
Including, as we kick off the news round, brought to you this evening with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products, including, Will, a huge game for Celtic.
Yeah, they've kicked off their game attempting to reach the playoff phase of the Champions League. They're trying to reach the group stages for the 3rd year in a row, but they've had to come through all of the rounds this year, so it's been that bit more difficult. They will need to score away to AK Athens in the second leg of their 3rd qualifying round if they're to progress. The Greek side have that very important away goal from last week's 1-1 draw at Parkhead. Celtic were hoping to be able to play Moussa Dembele from the start, but he's not fit to start. He is on the bench, so it means that Lee Griffiths is up front on his own for the hoops there. The winners will face the Swedish club Malmo or Hungarian team Vidi for a place in the competition's group stage. That game is also tied at 1 apiece from the first leg in Sweden last week. The big news for Celtic ahead of that game as well is that Dedryck Boyata has not travelled to Greece with the Celtic squad. He insists he's not refusing to play because he was refused to transfer away from the club last week. The Belgian defender had been heavily linked with a move to Fulham. Reportedly a bid of 8 million came in before the transfer deadline. His agent claimed earlier that his client didn't want to risk himself in the game tonight, but Boyata released a statement earlier today saying he's not playing, and the reason he's not gone to Greece is because he's not fit to play.
Which you would think, okay, suspicious. And Brendan Rodgers in a TV interview in the last hour has made what looked suspicious look like a downright lie.
Yeah, I think you saw it. Well, he was quite emphatic, I think, saying he's fit. He's fit. He's just not with us.
Yeah.
So it's a huge game this for Rodgers because it's all been positive pretty much during his time in Scotland, and they've been dominant, sort of winning everything. But just this summer hasn't gone great for them, and there's sort of been vibes. He hasn't been hugely chuffed with their transfer business. They have this Boyata thing going on, and while this is a grind to get through all the rounds to the Champions League, they did it really impressively last year. Like that result last week has put them in serious bother tonight. And if they don't make the Champions League, as much as there's good money in the Europa League, it's only a fraction of the Champions League, and Celtic need to get that Champions League money. I think it's like 25 times the size of their TV revenue in Scotland. It might have gone up slightly this year. So their season sort of rests on getting through these rounds. And I don't know, like Rodgers obviously hugely popular up there, but I mean it's going to be hard. I don't know how hard it is to just keep going if you feel that the club is standing still, and that might be the concern that he has.
Breaking news, 6 minutes gone. Rodrigo Gallo, AEK 1, Celtic 0.
Well, that's not a good start.
No.
They're behind the 8 ball entirely now.
Celtic's away record in Europe is traditionally awful. I think it's 4 wins in something like 16 games, so I mean, there was that kind of hanging over them. I appreciate it's different management.
The qualifying, and the qualifying rounds, they've been good. And there's one of those goals we'd say, well, that changes nothing, except, I mean, it does change things because the's one more goal. But they did have to score anyway, Celtic.
But if they'd scored one, they would have been.
They would have won. You see, so it doesn't actually change something. But they're in.
It's changed so much.
They're in a bit of bother now. Yeah.
Yeah. The Boyata situation must be tricky for Rodgers to handle because he presumably wants to keep him and wants to keep him happy and playing reasonably well for the rest of the season. But he's effectively down tools here in the hope that a European club comes in from now.
Unless you want to keep him till January just sulking, and that's not really of much benefit, you know. And there's an interesting dynamic there, because the other Scottish clubs have done quite well in Europe this year, and Rangers have started very well under Gerrard. So there's another player in the game there now that might pose them a bit more of a threat this year.
On Bielsa, I haven't heard you lads bang on about Bielsa. It's so strange seeing him slum it. In relative terms, and no offence to Leeds fans at Ellen Road, it'd be like Dan McDonnell writing for his school newsletter. From Brian in Wexford.
That's very harsh on Leeds, and indeed school newsletters. There's a lot of Leeds fans out there who'll be a bit unhappy.
No, they won't like that one bit.
Well, they're sleeping joined.
Well, that's the thing. Does a tactical genius not need genius players to carry out his plans, or will he tailor his tactical nous to suit the level of players at his disposal? Says Shane, who's polishing shoes in Athenry. Good man, Shane. It's important to do that. You need to do it the night before. The stink, if you do it the morning, will be.
Bielsa would love that attention to detail. You know, I'd say he's a shoe polishing type of guy. You know,
I'd say so. Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, I suppose. It seems. I mean, Keith Andrews was very impressed with the Stoke game. I haven't seen them play this season, but he was saying they were really playing beautiful football in a way that they hadn't done as players last year. So, I mean, the funny thing is when we talk about players who've made it to Championship or Premier League level, and think of the best player in your own life that you ever played with, and how good they were at controlling the ball, passing the ball. Like the notion, and that player was rubbish compared to Premier League Championship players. They should absolutely be able to do all these things. It seems Bielsa's, what's he asking them to do that they wouldn't be able to do?
No, they are. Like the Championship is. I think I was doing a piece on this recently. In the top 10 leagues in the world in terms of sort of revenue generated and stuff like that. I mean, attendances wise, it's up there. I think top 3 and behind England and Germany, like the second tier. So there's massive money going around. I think the average wage in the division is pretty high. Yeah. So he is still working with a decent level of player. The one thing I would say about that division, in recent years, is all about momentum. Sometimes just teams get going at the start and they're away. Like Wolves last year were going to get promoted from November. If you get that start going and you have that grind, you just need players that are durable and able to withstand that run of schedule and fixtures. And if they're buying into what the manager is doing, that can sort of carrying them a hell of a long way. And
one caveat on our Bielsa loving is that Leeds were top of the table after 9 games last year and then fell away
with a new manager who was, I think it was a Swedish fella who was very much new, and there was stuff written about what happened. And they went through another manager before the end of the season. They got a guy from Barnsley who was then turfed out at the end of the year. So, I mean, they've been a complete basket case of a club in recent years. So this is it was an interesting departure, but he might be living up to the billing, which is just quite something.
Grania and Tuam. Jeez, everyone in Galway listening tonight.
Yeah.
Cyril Farrell's on. Cyril Farrell's on the way. Spread the word around the county. Grania and Tuam. The benefit to foreign managers not having perfect English means they can excuse themselves from answering tricky questions. It's very true. I mean,
Trapp's English used to get worse depending on the difficulty of the question. That was, and he was there's sort of parallels, different style of football, but in terms of personality, Trapp, I can sort of see it. There's a disdain that just comes from having seen so much before. So this circus is nothing new compared to what they've encountered elsewhere. Yeah. And his English definitely would fluctuate depending on the nature of the query. If it's a Stephen Ireland question or something, they might just go down a different road of English.
Pochettino as well. For about a year was faking his lack of English. It's quite clearly.
And now he speaks exactly. He didn't just do a really good YouTube language induction course over a summer. He was clearly there the whole time.
The Lee Miller tribute match sold out?
Yes, sold out entirely now. I know we were talking to Kev about this last night. It was 38,000 gone 24 hours ago. Those tickets, which were all for the terraces, all were completely sold today. So 45,000 sellout for the game coming up on September the 25th. It is between Republic of Ireland Celtic and Manchester United legends. And I will remember the former Ireland midfielder Lee Miller, who passed away very tragically from cancer earlier this year, aged just 36. Chelsea midfielder Temue Bakayoko has finally got his move away from the club. He's joined AC Milan on loan until the end of the season. The Italian club will have the option to make the deal permanent next summer. This seems to be Milan's plan with financial fair play as well. The same with Gonzalo Higuain, who joined them a few weeks ago as well. Here at home, Sligo Rovers players have given up a portion of their wages after Saturday's surprise defeat against Longford Town in the first round of the Daily Mail FAI Cup. Sligo's vice-captain Rhys McCabe has told Ocean FM that the squad feel they've let down their supporters and manager Ger Little as well. Last Saturday's match was the Bitter Reds' first home game in almost 2 months. Because of the European break, they missed their home games there, and you can read more about that story on offtheball.com as well.
Yeah, it's a good gesture. I think. It's a good PR move, but I mean, these guys aren't. I mean, they're full-time pros who wouldn't be earning like huge money. So it is certainly a good gesture, because their home form has been pretty poor all year, and getting knocked out of the cup, as Will mentioned, they've had this mad run without home games. So like finances will be strained there. So it says.
I almost feel like they shouldn't have done that. Like, I guess it's an awful lot to do.
They've been. I mean, see, the thing is, that club have a great fan base, and they do brilliant fundraising. Every year, the fans get together and raise a lot of money to keep the club going. They have an annual draw which generates huge cash. So maybe the players feel they needed to give a bit back, because they've been pretty disappointing, particularly at home this year. But it's a good move, I guess.
Yeah, Davy is staying on.
Yeah, we've got two very high-profile managers staying in their jobs for 2019. Wexford hurling boss Davy Fitzgerald has agreed to stay on for a third season in charge of the team. The three-time former All-Star goalkeeper has agreed to stay on as the Models boss for 2019 following talks with his panel. Reportedly 12 players travelled to Fitzgerald last weekend in Clare to convince him to commit for another year, and the Wexford County Board confirmed the news, say they're delighted he's chosen to stay on. Since taking over in 2017, he steered the Models to promotion to Division 1A of the league. They were in the Leinster hurling final last year, but their 2018 campaign ended a bit limply. Defeat to his native Clare in the All-Ireland quarter-finals. Stephen Rochford has decided to remain in charge of Mayo's footballers for a fourth campaign as well. The 39-year-old has told the panel and the Mayo chairman Mike Connolly that he'll serve the second season of a 2-year extension, which he agreed last October. Rochford will have a new look backroom team though for next year. Coaches Donny Buckley and Peter Burke have both stepped away from their roles, and reportedly Tony McEntee, who was in as a selector last year, will also be leaving. So we'll have a totally new backroom team for 2019.
Yeah. Some rumours yesterday it was Jim McGuinness who was on the
quickly beaten away
cusp of coming in.
How many jobs has he been linked with now in various sports?
I mean, it's your guaranteed it gets interest if you put that up. Jim McGuinness linked. Now, to be fair, the story was saying the reports were that the Mayo County Board were thinking about McGuinness should Rochford step down, so it wasn't quite. Yeah, it was dependent.
Of course.
Rochford,
I mean, no doubt they were.
Yeah. Ask Dan about Jack Doyle Hayes. Probably starting for Villa tonight.
Jake Doyle Hayes, yeah,
I'm getting Jack in here. Jake.
Yeah, I think he's a young lad from Cavan.
Ballyjames Duff.
Yeah, he was at Villa and was involved in some of the League Cup games last year. Like, we've had a lot of young Irish players at Villa. The likes of Graham Burke and that have come home and gone back, and Mikey Drennan and a few others. But yeah, he was well thought of enough to play in the games last year, in the sort of these level of games. So yeah, I think they're playing Yeovil away tonight. I think so. That game might be on the box as well. So it's good to have an Irish point of interest.
Good evening, lads. Says Anonymous. I'm looking for 2 tickets for this Sunday's All-Ireland hurling final. Now, I don't expect them for nothing. I'm happy to give you 2 Shetland ponies, both female, suitable for breeding, and also 2 male goats, who sadly are not suitable for breeding. I was going to stick these up in Dundee this evening, but I thought I'd give you first option. Don't miss out, lads. 53106 is the text number. We can form some kind of auction here.
What would you do with the goats?
How many All-Ireland tickets is that worth? 10. We'll start it off at 10. 10 All-Ireland tickets for that.
Yeah, you said you only wanted 2, I thought.
Well, I think it's a hell of an offer from
2 goats.
Anonymous.
What are you going to do with the goats, really?
2 male goats, not suitable for breeding. Well, I don't know. What would you do with them?
You just,
put them on your hill.
Care for them, love them.
Yeah, you could eat them, but that wouldn't be hugely popular.
Why would you say that now?
There are countries where goat is a delicacy.
Well, hopefully not Galway.
No, not in Galway. In Argentina, actually. Bielsa's probably had some goat in his time.
Okay.
Probably unpopular suggestion.
I just don't think we need that image. So where we're Fernando Alonso.
He's going to quit Formula 1 at the end of this season. The 37-year-old who has been racing now for 17 years in Formula 1, 2-time world champion. Many feel he probably should have won an awful lot more, having won 2 as a very young man. He's not won a Grand Prix since winning in Spain 5 years ago. He's going to make the switch now to the IndyCar series. He did race 1 race earlier this year as well in that. He's aiming now to win the sport's Triple Crown, adding the Indy 500 title to Le Mans and also the Monaco Grand Prix, which he's won as well. So it'd be quite an achievement if he was to pull it off.
What's the reason he didn't win more? Is there an agreed consensus in that?
It seems from any of the commentary today, he's a very difficult guy to deal with. So when he was at good clubs, or at good teams, I should say, they kind of felt, right, Alonso's not necessarily the guy we want to keep on.
It was Alonso and Hamilton who were killing each other, wasn't it?
No, was that not Hamilton and Vettel?
Yeah. Oh, Vettel, yes, sorry.
Really went after Hamilton.
Yeah, that was a terrible kind of situation. When they were on the same team for a while as well. Okay.
But then in the last few years, Alonso's found himself back at McLaren, and the feeling was that he just wasn't getting the right car. Okay. He was very annoyed at the engineers at Red Bull as well. And the feeling was that his contract was up at the end of the season anyway. It probably wasn't going to get renewed. And was Alonso going to be willing to maybe take a drop down in the teams? It seemed very unlikely given his profile as well.
Okay. Kieran McGeehan was on OTBAM.
She was. She said it was bittersweet to finish fourth in Sunday's 1500 metres final at the European Championships. The Portaferry runner narrowly missed out on medalling at the second successive Europeans for her when she was pipped for bronze by Laura Whiteman of the Great Britain right on the line. And McGeehan says she just couldn't quite get that kick in the closing stages.
Well, I could see Laura Whiteman, the British girl, in front of me, and I was like, you have her. Just do the same thing you've done every race so far this season, up tall and run through the line. And whenever I came to the point where I just wanted to kick in a little extra gear, I was like, oh no, we're stuck. The gear wasn't there. I'd already used all my gears, and I was up in sixth already and couldn't hit the nitro. So it was disappointing for me, because I really just wanted to, whenever I play it back in my head, I'm like, oh, could I have found something? But believe me, I was searching throughout my body to find an extra little bit to just push me on, and Laura Whiteman managed to find just a little bit to get an inch ahead of me and cross the line with her in third and me in fourth. So I'm pretty sure that home straight will haunt me for maybe the rest of my life, but yeah, that's sport.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe it doesn't. Like, maybe you do find that extra gear. Do you think that's possible?
Oh, definitely. I'd have a good strong finish whenever I'm racing, and I think for me, what will really change that is becoming stronger as the season goes on and go into the winter season and into next season next year. I definitely think that people wonder if it's speed, but I'm fast. It's the fact that I know that I'm going to be strong enough to utilise my speed come the end, and I know that I'm going to get stronger over the next year. So I actually am really looking forward to the years ahead, because I had a taste here this weekend of what I can do, and I can be at the top table and compete against the best in Europe and the best in the world, all being well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what's ahead.
She certainly has the pedigree, so it's good to hear she's taken some positives from Berlin. Where are we going next?
Well, elsewhere, we've got a move for James Madden from Dublin. He signed a 2-year contract with the Brisbane Lions. The Ballyboden St Enda's clubman impressed the Lions by breaking the AFL combine records both in the agility test and in the 20-metre sprint. His 20-metre sprint time was the best ever of anyone who's been looked at, either internationally or Australian, in the 20-metre sprint. He was part of the Leinster-winning Dublin minor football team this summer, and he also played under-20 for his county. They lost the Leinster final against Kildare, and he was delighted he's in Brisbane at the moment to have finally completed the switch.
It's a bit surreal, to be honest. I've been thinking about, I knew I've been coming for a while now, and it's great to finally be here. It's a bit weird meeting all the coaches and players, seeing them on Instagram and stuff for the last while, so it's good to be here, yeah.
Can you talk us through your background in Ireland and your history playing Gaelic football?
Yeah, so I've played Gaelic and hurling for Dublin for the last few years. I played minor and under-20 for the Dublin Gaelic team, and last year I did the combine in Dublin for the AFL combine and went pretty well, and then took a trip over to Florida with the AFL academy, and it all went well, and then yeah, it was good.
So we heard at the combine that you broke the record for the 20-metre sprint. Is that one of your big weapons?
Yeah, I like to think it is. I did the sprint, and I was pretty amazed that when he came over and told me that I beat it, and he had to remeasure, make sure it was 20 metres and stuff, and then but it was great to beat that. I was a bit amazed that I did it, but I was happy, yeah.
What's the record?
He came in 2.39 seconds.
For 20 metres?
Yeah.
Standing start, obviously.
Yeah.
It's pretty quick, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, look, I presumed it would be, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to visualise it. 20 metres, 2.39 seconds.
Yeah.
Go. 1, 2. Oh, yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
Doesn't take that long to visualise it, really, you know.
About 2.39 seconds.
That's just about the time you're looking for. Yeah.
I've been vindicated on the Formula 1 front. Jesus, lads, you having a breeze about Formula 1, he said, looking at Will. Hamilton was never Vettel's teammate, he was Alonso's, and they never got on, hence why he left McLaren the first time.
Because that was the first move, but didn't he battle against...
I thought Hamilton was rowing one of his teammates at one point.
Yeah, Alonso, that was the big feud initially, wasn't it? And then Vettel was a big rivalry, but him and Hamilton couldn't even talk to each other on the same team.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry if I'm not trusting you just now.
Hey, look, since it went off terrestrial TV...
I looked
Alonso was involved when I was sort of last really following F1.
When was that, by the way?
Back in around 16, 17 years ago. He was around the scene for a long time.
No, sure. I don't really talk to anyone who doesn't say, geez, I used to be into Formula One and I'm not now. I have no sense of it being popular anymore at all.
But I think it's just been lost in the mass sort of availability of all sports at all times of the day on all channels, where there was a time when actually
I think it went a bit rubbish
on a Sunday,
too.
Yeah, but on a Sunday you wouldn't necessarily have a great choice if it came to your sport. And it was on BBC with like Murray Walker and whatever, like, and the RT had them as well.
Peter Collins days.
Yeah, there wasn't a huge amount of alternative sports on other channels at the time.
Yeah.
It's sort of that time where you used to watch every sport that was on almost.
Look, I do accept that point to a large extent, although I would say when it was even still on BBC in relatively recent years, it was still massively declining for whatever reason.
In kind of the post-Schumacher period?
Yeah.
I don't know. All I can relate to is my own experience, where it's just like, well, there was other sports on you could watch all the time. And
I still remember, like, I mean, the last time I really was into it was when Hamilton won his first one in the final Grand Prix in Brazil. That's gone back about 10 years, actually. That's about 10 years, I think, this year.
I was gone by that point.
Were you?
Yeah.
But then it was still on BBC at that stage. It was still terrestrial TV. Like, it was Coulthard and Eddie Jordan doing the punditry. I don't know why. I mean, F1 fans, is it as good as ever? Is the question I'd be curious about, or is it even not what it used to be?
It still has a pretty substantial fan base, you know. But it's
sure.
just like it's packaged away now on one of these dedicated channels, like a lot of sports. So
what's it on now?
You have to go. Well, I think don't Sky have an F1 channel effectively?
Oh, they do.
Channel 4, it's some of the rights as well, but it's only for some races a year, same as BBC when they lost it.
Sky Sports isn't quite 11 Sports.
Well, Sky Sports never really covered it that much, and then all of a sudden they got the rights, and now you see F1 dropped into their bulletins all the time.
Yeah,
and it wasn't never there before.
So Sky Sports is still fairly accessible. Like, we all watch our football on Sky. We're not watching our F1.
No, but there's 6 other channels going at the same time.
I know, but it can't just be channels that you stop watching it for.
No, probably not. But I think, I just wonder. I'm just going to use my own experience to generalise the entire population's relationship with it.
Fair enough.
Let me do that.
I don't really know why I stopped watching it. I just sort of did. Can't think why. I mean, it was phenomenal for a few years. The Jordan years, Eddie Irvine, Schumacher.
You'd be watching your golf on a Sunday, or in here working. You know.
Yeah, but that's not.
They've also changed the circuit, haven't they? That they go to different venues now, so the time zone wise, I think it's at different times as well. I think some of the old European Grand Prix don't exist anymore that used to be on.
And the season's much longer too, and there's breaks in the middle of the season, which kind of makes it more difficult to follow. It's more of a commitment to follow it now.
Is it?
I think so.
Okay. Anyway, that's not our most exhilarating conversation we've ever had the last few minutes.
So we've angered every F1 listener who knows.
I'd be curious to know.
People talking about your passion with no knowledge of it is a frustrating thing.
No, sure, and we're coming clean on that. You don't need to let us know that we don't know. We've kind of stopped watching it all for different reasons. I'd be curious to know if the F1 fans still think it's as good as ever, better than ever. 53106, you get us on Twitter. So Tyson Fury?
Yeah, he's been talking today as well. His aim is to become a 5-time world heavyweight champion without losing a fight. The former WBO, IBF and WBA belt title holder will continue his comeback in Belfast on Saturday. He takes on the Italian Francesco Pienta, who he hasn't been overly keen to talk about ahead of this fight. He's intended to talk about Deontay Wilder and also Anthony Joshua. It'll be Fury's second fight since he was 2.5 years out of the ring, but he says he's looking to be around in the sport for quite some time.
To be a 4 or 5-time heavyweight champion ain't been done that much, so I always aim for the stars and set big targets. So that's what the target is, to win it, retire again, balloon up, have another 3 year out the ring, and then come back again after 3 more years.
Tyson Fury in good form. So All-Ireland final, obviously this weekend in the hurling, and then ahead of the football one, we've got a really good show event coming up for you if you want to come along. We have a brilliant lineup. Aidan O'Shea is going to be there, Kieran McGeeney, Senan Connell, Cora Staunton, a few more stellar names, and we're doing it from Croke Park on August the 30th. So if you want to come along to that, go to offtheball.com/events and you'll be able to get your tickets there. So Aidan O'Shea, Kieran McGeeney, Senan Connell, Cora Staunton, all ahead of the All-Ireland football final, August 30th. Ahead of the hurling final this weekend, we have Cyril Farrell on the way just after 8 o'clock. And up next, we're going to check in with Shane Lowry. He's over in North Carolina, fighting this week to save his PGA Tour card.
Off the Ball on Newstalk.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
The Hard Shoulder.
Cork, the most friendly city in Ireland, the most friendly city in Europe, and the third most friendly city in the world. My thanks to Paul O'Connell. Yes,
before
Paul.
Before you go, what you'll have to do, you'll have to come down and we'll give you a personality change, okay?
All right.
Call down, okay?
That'll take more than a day. All right.
The Hard Shoulder with Ivan Yates.